Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. Here, this is the spot where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Welcome home, Brains. There's only one requirement to hang out on the edge, is that you open your big brain and close your small mind. Did you bring your thinking caps? It's time to put them on, because the conversation starts now.
I dressed up for you.
I know.
My bicycle.
I know. I was like, look at you. You're looking dapper. You're
Well,
looking like brand new money. Are you still riding?
I am. If you see me at Lake Murray, if you see this shirt at Lake Murray, it's me.
All right. Well, I'm gonna pull you over. You see, yeah. Edge with April Mahoney Brains. This is the place where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. And we love sports and the outdoors. Cycling, one of my favorite things. It's nothing like being on the back of a bicycle, or should I say on top of a bicycle seat, and having that wind blow in your face. There's a certain freedom. And my guest today, David Reed, is also my neighbor here in San Diego, California. We don't live too far apart, and we ride our bikes in the same place. But what David has done is he is not just riding his bike, he is a continental cyclist. I like that. He's written a book called Uphill into the Wind about his journey cycling across the United States. I don't know who does that. I'll get the Tour de France and I get exhausted just watching them the first day. So we're going to talk to him about his adventures and the book and how we can be encouraged and motivated to still be vivacious at a certain age. Start out small, but again, keep it moving, because if you don't move it, you're going to lose it. Right, David?
That's right. That's right.
So welcome to the Edge. Tell us a little bit about you and how you show up in the world, sir.
Well, I'm retired now, but I had a career. I started a landscape architecture firm. Some of that's related to my past with the environment. But now I'm just enjoying life. I am riding still. This story, Uphill and Into the Wind, happened in 1974.
Wow.
And people ask me, why did you wait so long to write this story? I was 24 when I did this, and this is an event. Writing a story is something young people think of differently. So when many years later, when my dad passed away, he had a good life, but he had a short little memoir he wrote that helped change World War II, something he had contributed. And I thought, I should write my story. And I started writing, and I got 50 pages in my earliest childhood memories. And it's the bike trip. I have all the journals. I have literally 7 journals from that trip.
Wow.
So I kept journals every day, and I transcribed all of them. And that became the first draft of the story.
Well, it is a telltale for sure of adventure. Tell us some of the things that are inside the pages of the book. What are some of your, most harrowing moments? Because you weren't by yourself. You were with a couple friends?
3 of us, yes. Rusty and Susie, whom I saw last week. In fact, I was back east. They live back east. Harrowing moments, there are so many, April. And Brains, I have to tell you, when you travel on a bicycle, this was 1974. We didn't even wear helmets then. I don't ride a bike without a helmet today.
Wait, let me ask you, what type of bike was it? Like
it was a 10-speed.
A 10-speed. Wow.
It was a 10-speed. It was a steel frame bike. The guy we bought the bikes from suggested steel frame because we had gear, and I had 50 pounds of gear. I had 15 pounds of camera gear. So in the story, in the book, there are these little icons. They're like a little, the eyeball, and they connect to a place on my website where there are all the color photos are. So I had a lot of color photos. But at any rate, so where were we?
We were talking about harrowing moments, but okay, so now you did drive your bike. About how many miles?
The total we did was 5,420. It was not a straight line across the US. We went south from New Jersey. We started in East Orange, New Jersey.
Okay.
And right outside of Newark, and went south because it was mid-April, and it had snowed on April 6th, I think, that year. So we were just after the snow. We thought we better go south to where it's warmer, and one of the things we wanted to do was to travel through the national parks. So we headed south. We spent 2 or 2.5 weeks in Shenandoah National Park, and then we headed through the Cumberland Gap into Kentucky, Missouri, Kansas, Colorado, and we went up the spine of the Rockies. We crossed the Continental Divide, April and Brains. We crossed that divide on our bikes 11 times. Not by design, just because we were going to see the national parks and,
How long did this adventure take you guys? How long?
We left on one day after tax day, I like to say, April 16th. And we ended on Labor Day weekend in San Francisco. And then there was the trip home, which is, I wanted to keep it a secret because it's a real cliffhanger, talk about harrowing moments. Okay. But it came out, there was a BuzzFeed video about this a couple of years ago. And it's in there, the trip home.
Well, okay, so you didn't ride back home, did you?
Not on bicycles.
Okay, yeah. So I bet there was, like runners have chafing. I bet your butt was chafed, huh? Because
actually,
10-speed doesn't have a lot of cushion on that seat.
Well, what we did is we prepared. We had about 9 months to prepare for our trip, and we brought these leather saddles, leather seats. Mm-hmm. And we broke them in with neatsfoot oil, and they told us, soak them in neatsfoot oil. And so we did, and they were conformed to our butts nicely before the trip. But the thing that got to me were the nerves in my hand here and here. After a while, they were numb. I had trouble writing a traveler's check, but I learned to just change my grip more often. But harrowing, I had, they say a cat has 9 lives. Well, right. I'm afraid to count.
I can imagine.
We had so many close calls. The first one was with a Doberman Pinscher, and he almost got me. But and there were some that were, we had bear encounters. I had a bear literally walk right over my thighs in the Shenandoah when I was sleeping. The moon was really bright. And the moon all of a sudden went out, and I opened my eyes, and here's this giant creature just stepping right over me. He wasn't interested in me. Wow. But he was close enough to see and smell.
So you're on this adventure. What sparked this? Why did you guys want to do this?
Good question. It was not, so we got the idea in 1973. There was a war going on that many of us did not believe in. There were 2 people in the White House who were crooks, Nixon and Agnew. And, Agnew had to resign because he was taking bribes. And Nixon had the Watergate thing. We were very disenchanted with all that. And with the war, 2 of my best friends, my 2 best friends went to Nam. Kevin was lucky. Tommy came back in a body bag. That really affected me. So I just wanted out. And that was the inciting incident. And then I read a story about these people that did a bicycle trip, and I thought, I can do that. You can ride anywhere on your bicycle. We grew up as kids riding, we rode I think 12 years old, we rode our bicycles to New York State from New Jersey. I mean, it was only about 35 miles each way, but.
Wow, but that's a lot. So the physical preparation for this, there's going to be, you got to take breaks to potty, to get water, to have food, to rest. How did you pace yourself? Because it's a mindset. It's a mental discipline. It's not just about getting on the back of the bike with a map. You got to really put your heart and your soul into this. You got to be dedicated, because once you get so far, your friends are going to leave you.
That's right.
if you don't follow suit.
Well, I'll tell you, we did a little preparation, and in fact, Rusty, Susie, and I. Susie was a little bit younger, and we did a ride in February in the winter, and Susie hit some black ice. It's ice you can't see.
I know.
Going around a corner, and she wiped out, and she didn't do too much training after that. And so she had to walk up the first hill. But after a few days, she came along really well. She became a lioness along this trip. She really did.
I bet.
Now, as far as riding, we just kind of left it open score. We'd ride until one of us stopped and said, "You know what? Let's take a break." Eating was a big deal. There was a point in time where I found out that bicycle riders like us would use up to 6,000 calories a day. So we ate a lot of ice cream and peanut butter, also peanut butter and jelly. But we would, and by the way, the other thing is, you're on the road, you spread out. There was a time when I remember looking back and seeing Susie. You could see this far. You could see a mile away. I could see her.
Wow.
So she's a mile behind me. But we always managed to stay in tune with each other. In fact, that's one of the things that happened to us. So when you think about, well, what changed you?
Right.
Or what so you've heard of runner's high.
Yes.
The people that run, if they run for more than an hour, their brain waves enter theta state, and it's a different state of being. It's more primal. It's like a heightened state of meditation. Well, we were in theta state all day, every day. We would ride sometimes 12, 14 hours a day, and we became children of a different consciousness. We were more intuitive. There were times when, at least from my perspective, my bike mates were up ahead, but I couldn't see them, but I knew where they were. There were 2 times this happened where, I had, I'm trying to remember, there was some mechanical failure on my bike, and I had, it was a flat, and I had lost my bicycle pump coming out of the Rockies, and so I had to wait for somebody to pick me up, and they got me to a town with an air pump, and now I'm like several hours behind my bike mates and heading in towards Grand Teton, but they weren't visible from the road, but I knew where to stop and look for them. So it's kind of like being psychic,
Wow.
It's just from being in theta state all the time. So that's one of the, the most powerful things that we experienced on our trip.
But this also taught you resilience. It taught you endurance. It taught you discipline, camaraderie, compassion. You were one with nature. I'm sure with you being a landscape architect, you probably weren't, you weren't doing that at that particular time, but you saw so much beauty as you traveled through all of these natural parks and all that. Did that give you a more of a oneness with the earth?
Oh, yeah. So this journey brought me a deep, deep appreciation for the raw beauty of the land. There are sudden and surprising glories of nature out there that just happen. We were in the Shenandoahs. We had climbed the highest mountain in the Shenandoahs, and it was very quiet, and we're on the top of this mountain. And all of a sudden below us, thousands and thousands of monarch and swallowtail butterflies in these undulating skeins flying north. Now, if there was just 1 or 2, there was no way we could see this. But there were thousands and thousands. And this was just a complete surprise. Just by being out there, the more you're out there, the more you see. And I think overall, I developed a far greater reverence for the Earth Mother than I ever had. And I've held that very close to me ever since. And I say the Earth Mother.
That's right. Thank you.
Yeah, because the Earth is our mother.
What did your parents say? David, what are you doing? Are you crazy? We paid all this money for you to go to college, and here you are on the back of a bicycle going across the country. What did they think about this?
My mother was generally supportive. My father was a little more stoic, and you could tell he wasn't really approving. But what was he going to do? I actually, at the time, I had, I lived at home summers when I was in college, but when I got out of college, I had my own apartment. So I was already out of the nest, but they were disapproving, and we lived outside so much, we all the time, that when we finally got home, the first night home, I couldn't sleep indoors. I went out and slept in the park across the street from our house, and my father found out. He was livid. I kind of felt like this wild thing.
Yeah, well, you were still in theta.
Yeah, that's right.
You hadn't decompressed. So you had time to complete 7 journals. You wrote every day at the end of the day or in the morning about your experience, where you were, what you ate, who you saw, who you talked to, how you were feeling. And you kept these journals with that other 39, 40 pounds of equipment that you had.
50
pounds of equipment. So I'm excited to hear a little bit about the book. Can you read us a little excerpt
I'll be happy.
From Uphill into the Wind?
Okay, this is early in the book because I don't want to spoil things for your readers and brains. As we're rounding a long hilltop along the highway, there's a Doberman pinscher chained up to our right, perhaps 70 yards from the road, who goes absolutely berserk at the sight of us, barking and straining at his steel tether. Somehow, bicycles provoke dogs, and this one is completely unhinged. I loathe Dobermans. I had one too many scary encounters with them as a child, usually from the other side of a chain-link fence. With their partly severed ears pointing sharply upward, they are Gestapo-like and vicious-looking, high-strung and bred to attack strangers. Twice this one lunges so forcefully that the chain goes taut, and his body flies out underneath him, snapping to rigid tension while his neck stays chained tightly to the post, choking him and dropping him to the ground. What agony. I'm bringing up the rear and have a good vantage point to observe all this. Clearly, the animal is alarming. The third time he lunges, the chain snaps. Realizing he's free, he scrambles to his feet, now in full froth and attack mode. My pace quickens, but I haven't reached the crest of the hill yet. I yell up to Rusty, "He broke the chain, get moving." Thankfully, this time Susie is well ahead. The top of this black and brown bullet streaks just toward us just above the tall grass. He's moving fast enough to catch me. I'm slowly accelerating, gaining on Rusty, who's cranking fiercely as the mad dog closes in. 40 yards, 30, 20. When he gets to the pavement, the evil creature picks up speed. My God. He's only a few yards behind me, bent on blood, his eyes focused on me, and his biting teeth show from underneath snarling, foaming lips. I'm standing on the pedals, giving it all I've got, but he's so close I can hear his lungs bellow and his claws on the pavement. Finally, we crest the hill. The maniacal dog is only a few feet behind me, but my 50 pounds of gear has now become an advantage. As the angry beast gets smaller and smaller, the three of us must be doing, my terror begins to subside as the angry beast gets smaller and smaller. The three of us must be doing 35 miles an hour by now. Once we're outrunning him, we don't look back for a while. But when we do, he's still there, unrelenting. My heart is pounding. He chases us for over a mile before giving up. Dog encounter number 1. On the bright side, spring is in full swing. Along the road, we pass dogwoods flowering in white and pink profusion. They're everywhere, at the edge of the woods and in people's yards. Phlox are purple and white carpets in formal regalia. The bulbs, tulips, hyacinths, and daffodils, the big yellow King Alfred types and the small, highly fragrant paperwhites, have awakened from their long winter slumber and glory our day with brilliant colors and sweet perfume. So soon after opening, the cherry blossoms have laid a blanket of delicate pink petals before us. Each breeze sends a new ripple of tinted snow fluttering to the ground, nothing less than an ephemeral prayer laid at the feet of the Earth Mother. Crabapple buds, pink and red, are only starting. They'll dance to a later ritual. Brilliant red cardinals glide in pairs over the road in undulating flight, all a courtin'. Their song is as resonant as a water whistle. Pepito, Pepito, Pedro, Pedro, Pedro.
Oh my God, that was so picturesque. I was there with you.
Thank you.
I was worried about you getting bit by that dog, and the
Too
dog
close.
was vicious, especially after he had been,
Yeah.
stabbed by the chain. He was hot then. He got his composure, and Dobermans are fast. Those long legs.
Yeah.
Wow. And so you had always had a fear of Dobermans. You had an encounter with one previous.
So I grew up right at the edge of the city. It was, semi-urban. It's urban now.
Mhm.
And nowadays, people, Dobermans may be a little different, but they were used as guard dogs and all kinds of things. And you'd be a little kid walking past a fence, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this giant beast come, roar, It's pretty scary.
It is really scary. It is scary. Well, that is, I don't know. You just use such beautiful, colorful language.
Thank you.
I was there. I could smell the flowers. I could see it. So that's really, really beautiful. So what was the writing process like? You have journals. Did you use a writing coach? What was the process to compile all of this to put it into a book?
So I told you that I transcribed the journals. I have them here.
Oh, look at
all
that.
of them. They're, anyway.
Wow.
So I transcribed all the journals, and I had about 415 or 20 pages. And I have a neighbor who's a published author. She's a tennis pro. And she said, you ought to go to the Southern California Writers Conference. So I did, and I met people there. And, you go there, they have they're called read and critique groups. They're usually early in the morning or late at night. And they're sort of an ad hoc thing. And so the first one I went to, the person who was the leader of the group, she said her thing was, you bring your 10 pages and I'll read them, meaning she would read them. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a timid person, but you're in a room with strangers, and my heart was in my throat, but she read it and she was very encouraging. In that, then I found out, I should join the San Diego Writers Inc. And I joined a reading critique group. And so that we met every Tuesday for 5 years. Now the first 2.5 years, you get to read every other week, but everybody critiques your work. And in the beginning, it was, you'd bring paper pages and everyone would critique, and then you get the pages back and then you could improve. So the first 2.5 years, I read the book to my group. Now I also had, I had 3 editors. I had a developmental editor. I can't remember how the lineup goes, but copy editor, and my reading critique group was my best critique. My wife, Carolyn, my wonderful wife, was also an ardent critic. She would give me good insight. And then the editors, professional editors, they tell you, don't hold on to anything. And this was all suggestion on the editor's part. Mm-hmm. There was one place she took 5,000 words and track changes, and she, get rid of this. It doesn't move the story forward. So I did. I listened to her. Wow. And it's like maple syrup, you boil it down and it gets better. So that was my process. And I've written professionally in my landscape architecture work, but this was different. And I'm really glad I took the time. April and Brains, I did the first draft in 2.5 months. And then I spent 6 years polishing.
Yeah.
I'm glad I did.
It is. It's like a rusty piece of grandma's silver. You gotta keep at it, keep at it. But that's a
Yep.
perfect segue into your architectural design. You are one of the landscape architects for one of San Diego's most precious jewels in Balboa Park. Am I correct?
I have 4 gardens in Balboa Park.
Wow. Wow.
Let's see, where do we start? The Old Globe Theater Complex.
Okay, wait. I'm writing this down because I'm gonna go by and I'm going to the Old Globe tomorrow. My daughter's a costume designer there.
Oh, how cool is that?
So I want to definitely see it. Okay.
So the whole plaza, all the plaza, the
Wow.
radiating pavement and all that. We were on a design team, this big team, but we did all the outside stuff. The landscape. There was a lighting designer, so we didn't have to worry about lighting on that. But the entire Old Globe Plaza. We did the Casa. The first one I did was the Casa del Rey Moral Gardens.
Oh, I know what that
It
is.
was a historic reconstruction. So if you go to the Prado restaurant and you go out on the patio, from the patio out, we did all that. We added an accessible route along the side. So if if you're in a wheelchair, if you're a disabled person, you can get to the lower terrace now. And there's an interpretive exhibit that we did down there. It's the first one in Balboa Park at the time, the first outdoor interpretive exhibit about the story of the gardens. So I recreated what Richard Requa had done in the 30s. Then there was the Veterans Garden, the Veterans Memorial Garden, which is over on the other side of Park Boulevard, which has not aged well. I'm very disappointed with how the city administered construction there. And then the latest one for us was the Mingay Museum. And it was the outdoors. There was the Nicky Gator sculpture that the kids climb all over.
I've taken plenty of pictures there. Me and my dog.
I know we have to.
I love it.
They took it off site for the remodel, and they had it polished up. There was some repair and so on. When it came back, it had to conform with new standards. So there was, there's cushioning, and it's treated like a play structure. So if a kid climbed to the top and fell off, he falls into that rubber stuff.
Wow.
And there was drainage considered anyway. And then the Poet Muse is in the back, and all the landscape around the part of the front and all the south side, lighting and all that too. So that was a thrill to work on.
You were really a gift, because I think about that. Brains, I've posted plenty of pictures. That's a staple in San Diego. So many people do their graduation pictures there, their engagement, their retirement. It is just, the gardens are absolutely magnificent. But it was very disheartening, and it's getting better, that the unhoused were using those beautiful gardens.
I know,
those places.
it's terrible. I mean,
for shelter, but it's getting better. I've been there the other day. It's getting better. And what are we going to do? But I guess they wanted to live among beauty, and you did provide them beauty. So know that you did well.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank
grasshopper.
Yeah. And now I tend to my own garden and my son and daughter-in-law and grandchildren's garden. So.
Well, and that's what I started doing. I was thinking about, what did I want to do to work out? And so we've done a whole bunch of remodeling and redecorating around our home, and gardening. David, I had no idea. I caught a Charlie horse. But I mean, gardening is not for punks, because you lift that dirt, that water. I have these beautiful porcelain planters. It's a lot of exercise in gardening. And I noticed, like in the Japanese garden there, but the Japanese and Asian cultures, that is a part of their daily practice, is to work in the garden. I really didn't, for some reason, think about how much activity there really is. And then the reward on the other end, when you see things blossom, you see things bloom. I go out now every day in my garden, because it's pretty. It's really pretty. And I welcome my plants. I say good morning, and I can feel a certain energy connecting with them. They feel my carbon dioxide. I feel their oxygen. Their leaves, I can tell when they don't feel good, if they're kind of slumped, if they want water. I can look at my plants in my office now and see that they're so happy, because the leaves, it's a secret language almost.
Oh yeah, there's so much research that's happened recently about, for instance, trees in the forest.
Oh,
They communicate through their mycorrhizae. How, it's pretty amazing. In fact, that's a lot of the reading I've been doing lately is that kind of stuff. Finding the mother tree, the wild trees, those kind of books. There's a tremendous amount of knowledge that's hard fought, and the woman who wrote Finding the Mother Tree worked for the forest industry, and she had to convince them that clear cutting wasn't a good idea. This is up in Canada.
Wow.
And she did it through her research.
Well, I'm a tree hugger. One of my guests years ago said, "You want to try a different meditation?" I said, "Yeah, I'm trying." And I went out and I hugged one of these big giant trees in Yosemite. David, it was transformational. I felt the energy. I felt a release. I felt like it was telling me a story. It was weird. It was weird. And now I just put my hands on it and I can feel the energy. I mean, these trees are 100 years old. Then I think about
thousands.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think about the tree that burned in Maui.
Oh, the banyan tree.
You're right. But now there is a sense of life. If you look at it, you can tell that it's coming back. That is amazing.
Yeah. I started writing about different trees, and I had, because I took my bicycle around the Hawaiian Islands back after my big bicycle trip. And I remember that tree. So I was writing about the tree. And then when the fire happened, I had to stop. But the tree, you're right, it's coming back to life. There is a thing in Japanese, a phrase called shinrin-yoku, and it means forest bathing. And to me, that's when you go out in the forest. And my wife and I did this on our anniversary this year. Went up to Mount Laguna, and the breeze is blowing through the pines, and there were still some flowers. The last of the summer flowers were out, and you just go there and listen, and it's magical.
It is magical. Well, you are magical, and you are such a gift. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your journals and your book and your travel with me and my friends here on The Edge. Put that book up real close to your face so that people can see it. I want them to see it.
Uphill and Into the Wind, a 1970s bike and hike odyssey from the Garden State to the Golden Gate. And you can get this at your local bookseller. I was blown away by how many bookstores they'll order it for you. It's also available on those other big places, but not the local. I want to support local bookshops. You can go to my website, which is uphillandintothewind.com. There are several pages, there are videos. I'll be thrilled to get April's podcast on there.
Absolutely.
Share it with my friends.
It's gonna be there. I'm gonna go and get a copy of the book. So I'm hoping that we'll talk offline, but I know there's a couple independent bookstores that we want to support.
Oh yeah. And if all you brains out there, if you buy my book and you'd like to get me to sign it, I have a special way to do that. I have a book plate I've made. This is actually the moon, Venus, and Jupiter on the first morning of our trip. That's the arrangement. This is Rusty and Susie and I at a place called Natural Tunnel, Virginia. And so I could send this, if you buy the book and you want me to sign it, I'll sign the book plate and send it to you at my compliments.
Well, so that is a gift. Too. That is a gift from a true adventurous. So now you're just kind of keeping it local. You're riding around Lake Murray and around the community. But before we close, though, David, let me ask you one question, because this is a bee in my bonnet. All right?
Go ahead.
The bike lanes.
Okay.
I support the bike lanes. I want people, because I ride a bike. I want people to be safe. Number one, wear a helmet, brains. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. I don't go anywhere with that helmet now.
And in my opinion, give the automobile the right of way. Don't try to compete. I saw a guy the other day down in Mission Bay. He got so annoyed with the driver, he kicked the driver's car. I get it. I get it. But this is a recreational vehicle. You are exercising. You are trying to have fun. Relax. But these bike lanes here in San Diego, I don't want to say that they're a waste, but they're underutilized and they're
Well,
everywhere and people don't know how to use them. So I've been pushing the city of San Diego hard to teach us and educate us on how to properly use the bike lanes. People don't know. You go up too far, you can cut off a person. You're back too far, you can get a ticket because you're in the lane. I don't understand how to use them. And some of the designs are flawed.
well, they're trying different things, and I would concur with you that some of them work better than others. I know a lot of people in small businesses along 30th Street who lost all their parking.
Right.
And we have to allow for both, but there is some wisdom in providing a venue, a way to go from one part of town to the other on a bike safely. And I guess they picked 30th Street as one of them, but they're underutilized in part, April, because it's still kind of new. And the planners, as a landscape architect and land planner, we study these things, and in the future there'll be more of this. There's more use of mass transit. If you look at the trolley is still 3/4 empty, and of course you go to other cities, and people
that's their major form of transportation.
Exactly.
They don't use cars, and we want to lend a support to climate change, climate action plan. Yeah. We want to reduce the carbon footprint. We want to reduce the electricity. I mean, the gasoline. So I get it. But to say that, a person is going to stop driving their car and pick up a bicycle,
that's not realistic.
Don't see it. And also, I'm concerned with these motorized bicycles. Either, is that considered like a motorcycle? I don't know how that works. Can they ride in the bike lane?
They have different levels, and I don't know much about it because so I did Bike the Bay this year again. I did it last year too, which rides over the Coronado Bridge. It's a lot of fun, and there were 3,000 people riding. In fact, there was a group that thrilled me. They're called Black Girls Do Bike.
Oh boy.
And they were from all over the United States, and they met here for their 10th anniversary thing. And there were, I forget how many hundred of them.
Wow.
But I came out of the parking garage on my bike, and I stopped, and here are all these women, and they're all cheering, and they're all got the same jerseys, and it was inspiring. But anyway, so the thing about the electric bikes is level 1 and level 2 electric bikes were allowed on this Bike to Bay ride. There are others that are I don't know, they're different, I guess. I at first people would ask me, well, don't you think that's terrible? And I said no, because it gets people out on a bicycle that wouldn't otherwise get out there. We have to go through a learning curve. The same thing with those rent scooter, those little
things. I don't even want to talk about how dangerous those things were. I would see people with flip-flops or barefoot, or a mother would have their child there, no helmets, going down traffic and expecting the right of way.
Yeah, and we're going to have a learning curve about that, and about the electric bikes. The e-bikes, I see some e-bikes, they're just plowing through and no courtesy. And but if it gets people out in nature, I'm supportive. I don't know why. This is the thing that gets me, is people out in nature, and they got the headphones on, and you can hear it, outside. And I'm sitting here listening to the songbirds.
But that's me. Put me some good R&B, some 70s or 80s, and that just intensifies it. But I use my imagination. I was riding down the Coronado Strand, and I was listening to some meditation music, and I won't do that again. I literally put myself in a trance, David. I felt like everything was going backwards and I was going forwards. It was the weirdest thing. So again, you have to pay attention. I understand exactly what you're saying. It's mind-blowing. and
Yeah.
it's a release. But it is absolutely wonderful, and you're wonderful. So thank you so much for being
Thank you.
on the edge with me and my brains. Brains, I'm going to put all the information on how you can purchase a copy of David's book, and hopefully get it signed for you. Support your local bookstores. Go out and just enjoy yourself. Get a
Get out in
three-wheeler
nature.
bike. Get a big a beach cruiser. But go out and have some fun. Enjoy the fresh air. Thank you so much, David. You're the best.
Thank you so much, April. Bless you. Take care.